welcome to the Mum Dem podcast. By the Mum Dem?
For the Mum Dem.
Welcome back, mums.
Welcome. Last time we were so excited to get going that we didn't actually introduce ourselves. So we're going to give a quick intro this time. I'll start. So I'm Kamilah. I'm a teacher and I have 3 children. Should I say anything else? Or do you think that's enough for the people?
That's great. They're going to learn more about you.
Absolutely. Over to you.
I'm Rachel Chamasi-Coulson. I'm a mum of 4 and an entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Amma and I'm a mum of 2 and I'm a lawyer.
I love how you forgot that.
I know, I'm on maternity leave, so I haven't done my job in a long time, so here we go. I was like, what's my job again? Yeah.
And today we have a wonderful guest with us.
Woo!
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Tobi Oredein. I am the founder and CEO of Black Ballad. Black Ballad is a media membership company for and by Black women in Britain and beyond. And I have 2 little ones at home. So yeah, and thanks for having me on as your first guest, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Honoured.
Thank you so much. So yeah,
We're very excited to have you, and there's lots of excitement. I think loads of people are excited to know that you're on the Mum Dem I can't speak today. Mum Dem podcast.
Oh, really? Oh, no, that's really nice, and I love the branding on the t-shirts. It's super cute.
We do try. So Toby, we have a number of questions for you today.
I'm ready for them.
And the first one is all about your birth story. So how did you join the Mum Dem? Tell us about your first birth.
Yes. So I joined the Mum Dem gang in 2020. My daughter was born very, very close to the first lockdown. So I went in first lockdown, I think March 23rd or 25th. My daughter was born in the first few weeks of April. I was saying to Amma before we came in, you know, people say I had my baby in COVID. No, I had my baby in COVID. Like COVID. Like in terms of, yeah. So I had contractions on like a Tuesday. And then I remember like I don't like pain either, so I was kind of like, I'm going to do this. So then, you know, I started like contractions early in the morning. I was kind of milling around the house, and then, you know, at one point in the evening, I said to my husband, I want to go to hospital now. And I was always like, I want to go to hospital, not when we're rushing. I want to get there in good time. Yeah. So we drove to the hospital, and then we went up, and I remember it was like 1 centimetre. And I was like, what? I said, what? I said, okay. And then there was this midwife. She came in. This is going to sound, I haven't really said this before, but this is going to sound like, I feel like if you're a Christian, you'll get what I'm saying. If you're not, hopefully you can be understanding. So there was this black midwife that came in, and she said, Mum and Dad want to check baby's heartbeat. We never said that. And then she's like, I was like, okay. They checked our daughter's heartbeat, and they said that heartbeat is irregular, and they have some concerns. And they said, because of that, we're actually going to keep you overnight in what is it? Triage? Is that what they call it? Triage. Yeah. My husband ended up sleeping in the car overnight because he couldn't be with me. Yeah. And as the night went on, there were more sort of concerns around baby's heartbeat. Her heartbeat wasn't settling. But the craziest thing is, the midwife that said that, I never saw her again. Never knew her name. Never saw her again. Like literally, even when I said like this midwife, nobody even knew who I was speaking about. Right. It was a really strange experience. And me and my husband, as Christians, say like it was like she was like an angel, yeah. Like spiritual intercessor or whatever. So that was Tuesday. So it was into Wednesday. There were still concerns about our daughter's heartbeat. And then I think at one point my husband probably went home to have a shower and change of clothes, but he wasn't with me at all that time. And I remember my mum was calling me, my mother-in-law was calling me like, are you okay? Any update? I was like, if there was an update, I'll be updating you guys. I'm literally here, like on Instagram, like there's nothing. And I was messaging on WhatsApp, I was like, there's nothing really happening. And then they moved me to a private room on the Wednesday evening, and my husband was able to join me. And then I remember, like, there was no sort of, like, I guess, movement. Like, I was still, like, 1 centimetre. I was, like, baby girl said, I'm not ready to come out. Like, she was just there, like, chilling. But there was just growing concerns about her heartbeat. Like I had a sweep, like there was just nothing that was happening. So they was like in like Wednesday, you know, like we're gonna have to like break your waters. And I remember actually my consultant I was speaking to, she was like, I have to like, there's gonna be like, she's basically warning me that this is not going to be the normal process because we was in the very early stage of COVID, just going to locked in. And she was explaining that she had sleeping in her garage. She knows this, so everyone was wearing masks. So she was kind of saying like, this is not going to be normal. Like, I don't know how we're going to deal with this. She's like, you need to be prepared that we are not going to be able to just do this run of the mill. Like, there are going to be certain precautions that we're taking because I don't even know what COVID is. So it was like, okay, cool. But I'd never given birth before, so I had nothing to compare it to anyway. So it was kind of like, well, to me, this is probably like normal because I don't know what we're doing. So broke my waters. I think by the Thursday morning, I got to like 2 centimeters.
So how many? So from Tuesday.
Yeah. I was just there was nothing happening, but her heartbeat was getting worse, and I think, you know, we started. At that point, my husband was like, okay, like, what is going on? I was like, what is going on? Like, you know, if her heartbeat is not, if you still have concerns, like, what can we take? What can we do? And they said, maybe a C-section. And then I think, you know, when you're giving birth, you're kind of out of it. So I think my husband was kind of asking questions like, what can we do? Like, you know, but I guess trying to be fair to the NHS, they were trying to deal with COVID. But at the same time, I think the things is, you know, you're a black woman, you're part of a black couple. Are you taking me that seriously? There's those sort of things that are going on. I think one thing that did help me actually is my best friend's mum, my best friend was like over 20 years. Her mum is the head of the labour ward in my local hospital, so that's why I actually gave birth there. Unfortunately, my best friend's dad died of COVID the day I started having contractions, so she couldn't be there, so she was going to be there. So she was in the background phoning like, what is going on, like, let's start some movement here. So I had someone trying to move things along for me, but it just wasn't happening. And then on Thursday afternoon, I caught an infection. My daughter had weed and pooed in me. They said that she had caught an infection and her heartbeat went into distress. So I went from waiting, and then within like an hour, I was up for a C-section. And my husband couldn't come in with me. They was like, and I remember I broke down. I was like, I can't. And my husband was like, this actually isn't about you. Like, this is about us getting this baby safe and out. And I remember going up to theatre, and because it was COVID, my what's the person that puts the injection into your back? It feels like such a long and my
oh my god, that person.
I'm sorry guys for listening, like, it's been a long time.
All mums were tired.
And my midwife and another doctor were arguing. They were literally arguing about, should she wear a mask, should she do this? So there was a lot. I remember my midwife was like, there is a woman here who's doing this without a partner, like, let's have some like professionalism, like, stop this, like, actually stop. And I remember my anesthesiologist, I think she was horrible. Like, she was literally, it was kind of like, what about me? Didn't know, like, has she had this test? And I remember something like, no, like, baby is really in distress. We need to get this baby out.
You could hear all of this.
I could hear everything. I could hear everything. And then I was in, so like, literally, you've been told, like, baby's in distress. We need to get her out. I think from about an hour. I went in, did the C-section. And then I remember, like, hearing someone saying baby was born at X time, but she didn't cry. So my daughter didn't cry. And it felt like the longest, like, I don't know how long it was for, but she just didn't cry. And I remember in my head being like, what the hell? I was like, God, like, why is she not crying? And then, like, it felt like forever, but eventually I heard a and literally the midwife rushed her over and was like, this is your baby, and she was gone. And I remember they said to my husband, and Mum and baby will be back within like about an hour. Like, C-section is pretty straightforward these days, so it's about an hour and a half. I didn't have any sense of time, but my husband said, he like about 60 minutes, he said, what is going on? 90 minutes, what is going on? 2 hours, what is going on?
Wow.
So it was like a 3-hour wait, and no one was telling him anything. He hadn't seen the baby, so he said he was going to come through. And then I came back over 3 hours later with no baby.
He's like, what happened? He was a bit terrified.
And then I think he said that someone told him about 10 minutes before I came back, like, it was a little bit more complicated than they imagined. And then when I got back to the ward, my husband is actually in neonatal. They suspected she had an infection of the blood. She wasn't able to breathe on her own. So I'll be honest, my first birth was quite traumatic. It was really traumatic. And then I remember on Thursday night, my husband was still there, and then we FaceTimed her and we saw her in a crib. And that was kind of like, I guess, the first time I felt like I saw her properly through a phone.
Wow.
Because it was very flashing when they showed me. It was like they was very desperate to get her into like her crib. So it was very traumatic, I think, my first birth. And then like about at like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I said to my husband, "You gotta go." So then I was in this ward and we was in a COVID ward sectioned off. So then I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm here now Thursday night. And I remember just being like in a room and I was in like a shared like hospital wing and there was one woman next to me and she was crying because I think it was quite hard for a lot of mums. They didn't have their partners.
Absolutely.
So I remember like the woman I was there next to, like her baby was crying, she was crying. And I felt so bad for her because I was like, you know what, this is actually really stressful. And then I was kind of like, God, like, I just don't know what to think right now. And then the next day they called me, like they came down. I remember my husband, it was, I think anyone that gave birth around that time, there were a lot of husbands that were like kind of giving their wives and partners food. So my husband, like I would hear him, but I couldn't see him. He'd be like, oh, like, so he'd bought me like a bacon sandwich in the morning, not that I could really eat. And he'd just come at like lunchtimes and like breakfast to like give food that was at home that he had made. And then we got the news in the morning that she was breathing by herself. That was a relief. And then I FaceTimed her, but my husband couldn't FaceTime her for security reasons. Only the mum can FaceTime the baby and has access. So I would FaceTime, screenshot, and I remember sending him a picture and sending a picture to the family WhatsApp. So everyone had pictures of her on a Zoom in a crib, and it was like, oh my God, this is, and my daughter's the first daughter, she's the first grandchild, so she's the first grandchild on both sides of family. So everyone was like, oh my God, this is such a weird experience, but yay.
It was a first for everyone.
Yeah, it was a first for everyone. And then they said she'd come down, and I remember her coming down like Friday evening, and that was actually, and I remember looking at her, and I'll be honest, I said, shit, this is a lot of responsibility, Toby, like, you can't bleep this up. And I remember that was what I said. I was like, you can't mess this up. And I remember being like, looking at her, and I was just like, because I think when you're a mum, I always say this, it's the first time in your life you're responsible for another human being. I don't believe I'm responsible for my husband. I have responsibility to my husband because we made vows, and if you're with a partner, you enter into what use your agreement. So there's responsibility to your partner and your husband. But I am responsible for a grown man.
Great way to put it. We are not responsible.
But I think it's the first time that I'm responsible for him being. And I remember my mother-in-law always says to me, you know, my husband's her eldest, and she says, in all honesty, you don't ever stop being responsible for your children. Like, you try so hard, but as a mum, that is always your child. You can never shake that responsibility. Even when your kid is ill, like, you ring, you ask, are you okay? You want to be there, but you have to learn how to kind of fall back. And I remember just looking like, this is a lot of responsibility. And then we eventually went home on Sunday, so I spent 6 days in hospital.
Wow.
And my husband saw our daughter for the first time 3 days after she was born in the flesh. God. So that was my first birth story.
When did you see her for the first time?
So I saw her on Friday. Well, apart from the flashing moment in the theatre, I saw the first time Friday afternoon, evening.
In face to face. Okay.
The first time I held her.
Yeah. Oh wow.
You had a very traumatic birth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was. But I thank God that she's here.
Yeah.
She is just as dramatic.
We said that last time. The birth story seems to match their personality, doesn't it?
I can relate to a bit of what you said. I mean, I had my first birth before COVID. But the experience of having a baby in NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, we were told by readers that we use listeners. I'm so tired that we use acronyms and don't explain what they are. But when your baby is taken into NICU, even when you go there, I very much had this feeling like I had to ask for permission to touch my child.
Yes.
And they've got all these wires connected. It's really scary, and it's not the same as when you give birth and then the baby's in your arms. It's, you really feel like the baby's not yours yet, and then when they give the baby to you, I feel like I had more of a sense of what do I do with this very fragile thing that was just connected to wires that I wasn't really allowed to touch, and I love her, but also how is she mine?
I think that was the thing because of COVID, so we weren't allowed to see our daughter in like neonatal. So I think I guess I skipped that step. So in terms, I was looking at all these wires. I remember looking at a picture and being like, "What's this wire?
Yeah.
What's this wire?" And trying to figure it out. Like, I remember asking the nurse, like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "Oh, you know," I'm being like, "Oh, that's a tube to feed her, and she's got this because we think she has an infection, and this is to monitor oxygen levels." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So like we skipped that part. So it was kind of like. It was kind of quite strange. Like I had someone inside me that was kicking me like for so long. Then I had nothing. I didn't have anything to show or like hold. And then all of a sudden it was like, here.
There you
like,
go.
There you go. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Do you feel like you had much support to process the trauma of the birth?
No, because it was COVID. So it was like, it was one of those ones where my husband was like, I think you should have therapy of this, but I never did. But I think COVID was such a strange time. Like, I think, you know, having a traumatic birth story in a time that we had never seen was, you know, very strange. Like, you know, our daughter is the kid where grandparents looked through a car window. I remember the first time my mother-in-law saw her like through a car window, and she went straight back in. I think I remember she said like, what she said, God punish whoever started Corona.
Imagine her first grandchild. That's how she saw her. I feel so heartbroken for her.
And like everyone was looking at her through a window. Remember my mum, my husband's siblings, and like his parents, and we were just looking at her through a window. So I think it was quite it was a lot. And then my kids have got an 18-month gap. So, you know, I found out I was pregnant with my son 10 months later. So, you know, even trying to get through a traumatic birth story and COVID, and then you're pregnant again in COVID, you know, that time was still COVID. It was, you know, not as restricted, but I was still in COVID pregnant. So I guess like so many things have happened in terms of my motherhood journey, and I've had kids quite close together. I guess I just haven't had the capacity to even process it all. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, and I'm just very grateful that she's here, to be honest.
There's probably a lot of women out there that gave birth during COVID and are just surviving. And I feel like there's definitely, it's like when you started, you said, I gave birth in COVID. Like so many people say they gave birth in COVID, but you actually gave birth in the thick of it.
I had COVID when you were giving birth.
Oh,
about the time scales,
I was in a ward where, you know, like there were just no partners. There was just mums. There was no partners. But I can say that second time out it was a bit better. I'll definitely say that. But that's my birth story. I kind of wish for listeners maybe it was a bit more like, oh my god, I went into water and like she flew out.
No, this
like,
is important.
But these are the realities of it. How many birth stories are so simple? You know, you just went into water and you sneezed and then she came out, and then you went home and everyone slept and it was okay.
My wife and kids, I remember.
Yes.
And the dolly just flies out. I remember that episode. But
that was a good episode.
But I think it's the mums who had the difficult birth that really need to talk about it and also hear other people's stories. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
It's very intense.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it can be part of your healing, and it can be healing for other mums.
I hope so. I hope it encourages other mums to talk about it.
And one more thing, sorry. Just the isolation that you were talking about, being in the room on your own as well. Even for women that maybe are single mothers or, you know, they might not have given birth during COVID but had to go through that process alone. I think they can, you know, see you today, see what you've achieved, and see that actually I can heal, and you know.
I mean, like, single mums, real MVPs. I'll just say that.
Absolutely.
Real MVPs. I won't even. But the isolation part is really hard, because I think it's just the most you get is kind of like a phone. Like it's like your phone is a window to communication, and I actually thank God for technology in that.
Exactly. And you saw your baby the first time through FaceTime.
Yeah, but even
that's just testament to the world we're living in now, isn't it?
Yeah, or even just having communication with the outside world, where you can say, "This is my baby."
Yeah.
Like she's really here, because people go on that journey with you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like, yeah, so like usually, you know, you get, you know, partners. I don't even know if hospitals let anyone in but partners now. I don't know if that's changed.
I think you can have 2 birth partners now.
Yeah, but
yeah, I was like, when did I give birth?
Yeah.
Emma was there for my birth.
Yeah,
as well as my husband.
Yeah, so like you can, so usually you know, you actually share that moment with somebody, and it's a moment I didn't share with anybody. So I think technology kind of gave me a little bit of a gateway to kind of share what, you know, although it was traumatic, there is, I have to stress, you know, having my daughter is, you know, to me is still a joyous thing, and you know, she's the person that's changed my world in a way that no one else will, because she's my first child, and that is just the truth. Your first child changes your world in a way that no other human in your life will ever do. And I'm grateful to God that it was her, and she, and you know, I think sometimes also the bonds that me and my daughter have, actually, it's quite interesting, because it's like she's very much like loves to be held by me, wants to be close. And sometimes I do think, is it because we actually had that time where there was no one else, it was just me and her? So I do think there was a bond that came out of it that is like no one else. My son's not interested in me. He's like, just don't toss.
It's his age though. He'll come back. Around.
As I tell him, it's me that bears the scarf for you. It's not your dad. Give him a toss. Be gone, daddy.
Well, at least you got one each, you know.
But I would say one each, basically. But that bond that I have with my daughter, I do think sometimes it's because it was just us for like times, though, maybe.
Yes. Oh, thank you. You told that story so beautifully. I got quite emotional at times. I have to say. I'm like feeling the tears.
I know. I love birth stories.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
just something, and you can always, it doesn't matter how different your stories are, you can always relate to something in somebody else's birth story.
Yeah, even as you were speaking, I was like,
it's such a good way to connect as mums.
Absolutely.
And we don't really talk about our birth stories.
No, we just kind of get on with it, because that's what mothers do, don't we? We just get on with it, heal from that, heal from this. One thing I'm so passionate about is self-care for mums. I mean, we work so hard and we deserve some rest and relaxation.
That's why we're really excited to announce that we've chosen Liha Beauty as our season 1 sponsor for the Mum Dem podcast.
Liha Beauty have African roots and they're quintessentially British, just like us.
The products are sustainable, they're ethical, they use really cool ingredients like shea butter from Nigeria, from a cooperative where the women who make the shea butter are actually paid properly, and coconut oil. And coconut oil has this tuberose flower. The thing that I really love about the coconut oil is it's solid at room temperature. So it forces you as a mum to slow down. So when I'm having a busy morning and I'm like, I just need a bit of coconut oil, I have to either run it under hot water, put it in the shower with me, or just like put it in a little bath in the sink. And it actually gives me an opportunity to stop, to just have a couple of minutes of calm, which feels like a luxury when you're a mum.
Absolutely. Liha, you have done so well on this one, because from the second you open the box, the smell is just like
divine.
It's like a breath of fresh air, and it forces you to just sit with your products and enjoy your products and relax. And yeah, you've done an amazing job, Liha. So we just want to say a big thank you. Right.
It's a nice segue into our next question, actually.
Yes. Oh, I'm asking the next question. I was so organised, I had it all written down. And
you lost your notebook.
Yeah. My notebook's down here, guys. Okay, so question. First quick fire question. What for you is the best thing about being a mum?
I think the best thing about being a mum, I think it's a love like no other. I think it's the closest thing you'll ever feel to God's love. It's an indescribable
I love that
love. It's absolutely indescribable. Seeing the honour of just guiding a human through life is wild. And I say my kids waste my time, because I could just watch them. I could just watch them. I could just watch them. And I love when my kids interact. I could just watch them forever. I could just listen to their conversations forever. And they're 3 and 2. And I could just listen to the little conversations they're having. And I just think it's just a love like no other. And I think it just gives me a priority, a focus. It makes me see what's important. I think in when you have the best day at work, seeing your kids happy trumps it a million times. And when you have the worst day at work, you can't help but be happy and filled with joy of your kids. And that's an amazing thing. So I definitely think it's just the love. It's just, I love, as I said, that like it's the closest things you'll ever feel to God's love. It's an absolutely indescribable emotion. I say to my husband, I say to everyone, I could be anyone's enemy for my child, you know, my children. I could be anybody's enemy. I could be anybody's enemy for my children.
Yeah.
You look at my child in the wrong way, I am that mum. You look at my child in the wrong way, and I'm there. And like, but you know, obviously, it's just a love like no other. And I feel very honoured to be blessed to guide my kids through life. I think I've got this approach where at the moment I'm my child's manager, but there comes a time where I have to be their mentor, and I think that's kind of how
I like that.
I've always I've said to my husband when I got pregnant, our job is to be managers and then shift to mentors. And I'm not one that says, oh, that has to happen at 16 or 18. I think that's when I'll know when that happens. That might be earlier for one of them than the other, maybe earlier than I like or later than I like. But my goal is not to be the reason my child's in therapy. That's my goal in life.
I think we need to hear that again.
I know, right? My goal is not to be the reason why my child's in
Gosh,
therapy.
yeah.
If my kid wants to do therapy, if he needs therapy, I'll pay for it, I'll be there.
But not because
I'll wait
of
outside the
your
door, I'll read in the car. If you want me to be in the room and be quiet, I'll do all that. I'll pay for it. I want the reason that you're there.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's my aim in life. Me and my husband have said, like, we just can't be the reason our kids are in therapy.
I'm going to put that on my child's next birthday.
literally that. So yeah, but just the love of your kids is just indescribable. Yeah, it's indescribable.
I love that.
Agree. It's quite similar to Emma's answer when we did the pilot episode, isn't it? About it.
You need to
being...
remind me what it was.
It was quite similar.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I completely agree. I think that is the best thing about your mothering, though, is actually I've never felt God's love or seen God's love in such a way as this. And so for me, it's just like, wow, like look at all these little things, even simple things. Like my daughter's, who's 4, her words that she comes out with every single day is a new word, and me and my husband are like, so you teach her that? I didn't teach her that. So where did she get? I'm trying to figure out where did she learn this.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, incredible.
It is when you just watch how they take in the world around them. God, I love it. My daughter that just turned 3, she won't say, I want to sit on your lap. She'll come and say, can I just sit on you for a while? That is how, in those exact words. I'm like, where have you learnt this?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right, who's got the next question?
I think that's me. So, what is the best piece of parenting advice that you've had?
Oh, 2. One came from my co-worker Jindela Benson, and she said that when your kid is acting up at home, it's because they're your safe space. And I think that's given me a perspective on, you know what, also I'll be honest, I don't want to be the mum that's embarrassed. That like I won't embarrass you, you don't embarrass me. So like if my child's acting up at home, I'll take you to the outside. Like I will take you to the corner and me and you have a chat. Like I've done it in church, I did it in Westfield yesterday. I'll do that. I ain't embarrassing you if I run, and if not, we go home. Like me and my husband, we don't embarrass our kids, but you don't embarrass me either. Yeah. So if you want to act up, do it at home. I'll take it on. I'll take the bruises. I'll have to judge whether this is warranted or not, where the discipline comes in. But it's because my child feels safe with me. And I think that's a sign that you're doing a good job, actually. Like, it's interesting. My daughter's very expressive at home, and, you know, if she's upset or annoyed, it comes out at home. But, like, it doesn't really come out at a nursery. And the same thing for my son. So the tantrums actually happen more at home. And I know some people will say that, you know, you have elders be like, oh, so you let your kids walk all over you. Actually, it's not. Yeah. It's because that's where my kids feel safe. And actually, if they're acting up, and my kids are black kids. They're black kids where they're not, you know, 2 bus stops away. What are they? They're black. You know, they're black. They don't have that privilege to be acting up in certain places and be given benefit of doubt and grace. Like, I'm under no illusion of society and what I'm you know, and you know, having a husband that is as black as me, like, it's just not gonna, they just don't get that grace. And, you know, the nursery that we chose is the best nursery in our area, but that means that my daughter is actually the only child at my nursery with 2 black parents. Actually 2 black parents from a West African background. I think there is a black girl with 2 East African parents. But that tells you what sort of nursery my child's going to. And then my son has a black boy in his class, and then there's like I think 3 other black boys in that nursery. But you know, that nursery is, you know, it's over 100 kids there.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm very aware of the choice I made in putting them in that nursery, but I know what my responsibility is. So my children having their tantrums at home, I'm their safe space, and that's a good piece of parenting advice I had. And then from the person I consider to be my big sister, if she watches this, her name's Ola, she'll know who I'm talking about. How to handle mum guilt and work balance. You know, you have to work so you feel good about yourself. When you feel good about yourself, you'll be a better mum. Don't feel guilty for wanting to work. And that was quite a good perspective change for me, because I called her and I was like, oh man, she was like, you love your work. Your work gives you purpose. When you do a good job at work and you have that independence, you can be a good mum. And I think that was quite good. So those are the 2 pieces of mum advice that I've had from mums that I think has been very shifting and very liberating for me in being able to enjoy the motherhood journey.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
And the first one
we were discussing it yesterday a couple of days ago.
Literally, because my children are absolutely wild. They're bouncing off the walls, wild. But everywhere I drop them off, after I pick them up, like Sunday school, how were they? They were so good. Do you know, your son, he prayed. It was a beautiful prayer. He was praying for all his sisters. He went and picked flowers and gave them to all the other children. And I'm like, who? Like, obviously, I know my kids are sweet and stuff. And when Amma looks after them, they're so well behaved. But if I'm also there, they are wild.
I always say that when they're in my house without Rachel, I'm like, I don't even have to think about them. I'm like, they're fine. Rachel's texting me, are they okay? Are they all right? I'm like, they're totally fine. Second, their parents are there, Rachel and her husband are there. I'm like, who are these kids?
Suddenly there's crayons on the floor. And it's like, you know you're not allowed to do that. Why are you doing this? But the conversation we had was, actually, they feel safe at home. Not that they don't. They feel safe. Amma's their godmother. They feel safe with Amma. But it's different. It takes energy. And I actually asked my son about this. And he said, there's so many rules at school. It takes so much energy to be good. Because I feel like he's been like naughtier at home since he started school. And when I went to parents' evening, I was so nervous. And I heard, oh, he's like the best behaved child in the class. He sits, the other kids will be on the floor doing madness, and he's sitting with his group. There's like 4 of them, and they're like, we're going to make a book. And he's in reception, right? They're learning phonics, so the words don't really make any sense, but they've made a book, they've illustrated it, they folded it, and then they'll like make them and send them to each other's houses to add bits. Like, they're so like cute. Driven. But then he's like, yeah, it's really hard. School is hard. There's so many rules. At school, he's having the time of his life. He's enjoying himself, but he's also got that responsibility of I need to behave. My husband also works there, so it's like I can't embarrass daddy. At home now,
it's different.
Everything hangs out, and it's good. As you said, we are their safe space. That's so important.
And I think that's the thing about growing up, is that I didn't really have that. And I feel like I had to behave at home, I had to behave at school, I had to everywhere, I had to be perfect. No freedom.
That's why you were a wild teenager.
This is what happens, isn't it? If you don't feel like you have that safe space to be, and the freedom to be safe, and you're worried about being this perfect child everywhere, then
it's bad for your mental health. And like children have emotions like adults, and it's also about them processing their emotions. And going back to saying that, I don't want to be the reason my child is in therapy. This is about how letting them exercise their emotions to know how they can deal with it and properly process it as well. And I think that's really important. An important thing of like, just as much as we have emotions, our children have emotions. And I think there was a generation that didn't really think about that with children. And I think that's where I will say personally, millennials are trying to parent a little bit differently to those that have gone before us. Hopefully, there's no guarantees in life, but hopefully the probability of starting out is that hopefully our children will be more comfortable expressing their emotions freely when they get to certain ages. All ages, to be honest, just all ages.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely hear that. I have my father-in-law, if you're watching this, I get the comments. So if I'm at home and the children might say something or ask for something, or he's very much old school where he's like, oh, you know, you're speak when you're spoken to, or do you know that kind of mentality, or oh, when they're at my house they do the right thing, when they're at my house, oh, you need me to come and, you know, whip them into shape, and I get all of those comments. And it is always that older generation that seem to say
I will
those
say,
things.
saying that, my parents have learnt a lot. My parents
through your parenting.
They have 7 grandkids now.
Wow.
And I'm the second oldest, so they've had 2 others. And I think through my brother's parenting and his wife's, and through mine, and they've seen, and we've taught them things and sent them videos and resources. Yeah. And so now how they parent their grandchildren, I mean, it's not really parenting because the way the things they get away with, but I see them, I know, right? So much more, but I do see them trying to get it a lot more than they did with us. And I see them trying, like, helping them to discover their emotions and feelings. And even when I'm being impatient and I'm being told off because I'm being impatient, I'm thinking, if you know how you treat me. But I have seen my parents try a lot harder and it's like their second chance to do it in a way, which I really
and they're
think is
under
cool.
less strain, because me and my sister were talking about this meme, and she thought it was really cute. It was like, oh, if I knew what my parents had gone through at work, I would have defrosted the chicken. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. She's like, it's funny, Rachel, what are you talking about? I was like, no, can you imagine, like, going to work, being disrespected? Think about the civil rights, like, that generation had to fight for. And then you come home and in your own house, you're
all
like,
you asked for with a chicken was
and you're now coming to do another shift to now cook this chicken for your family. And they haven't even defrosted it. And she was like,
I felt that one. Your sister doesn't have kids, that's why she's saying that.
Listen, if my sister's watching this, you know, the little sisters. Anyways, God bless my sister, because she can handle my kids and she does, like, the babysitting if we need to go out in the night. So I don't even know what I'd do with.
Shout out the little sisters. Yeah.
All my siblings. Actually, no, I have to shout out, like,
shout out family.
The siblings, like the siblings, like my husband's siblings. Absolutely couldn't do it without them. My in-laws and my mum, like, all of them. You need the support there.
That's just that village. You definitely need it.
Yeah, it's vital.
For sure. 100%. Okay, we said this was going to be a shorter episode because Toby, you downplayed yourself in that intro. You are a powerhouse. What you're building with Black Ballad is incredible. Yeah. If you are listening and you have not seen Black Ballad, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but please check it out, subscribe, become a member. I'm like a day one member. I've got my badge.
You're an OG.
I wear my badges to the events when I can get there with these kids, and they're always fantastic, always beyond my expectations. So my question to you, and we're going to try and speed it up a bit because we mums can talk. I might have to do a part 2. My question to you is, what's it really like for Mum Dem working in media?
Mum Dem working in media, I think... Do you know what I think the hardest part about Mum Dem working in media is image is such a big thing. Image is such a big thing.
And your image, you are like the CEO in the suit. You see Toby, you see a power suit. Like even today, I'm like, oh jeans, like it's power suit, and they're always bold and like fun colours. Like, I've never seen that suit before.
Like, so I think it's image. I think there's like I've put on some weight at the moment, and like I think there's such a the snapback is like it's having a kid and then not looking like you've had a kid, and that's a very strange thing. It's body, it's putting yourself together, it's making sure you're done, and it's kind of like that's really hard to do. Like it's really, really hard to do. It's a lot of pressure, and I think that's really hard to do. And it's kind of like people want you, and not just your body image, but your image of your family. I've definitely taken a route where I keep my family quite hidden, even to the point where I've actually stopped saying my husband's name in interviews. He's open, like in terms of like you'll find him on like through my socials, but I don't post him as much as possible. I try and keep like even him kind of off, like quite limited on my feed. It's like people want you to present like you have this beautiful family, and you know your daughter has these perfect curls, and your son has this perfect hairline, and then your husband looks like, you know, this guy, and you know does this for you, and people want to know the ins and outs, and it's kind of like it's people want to know so much to make you relatable, and I've personally said that's just not for me. My family is my biggest blessing and priority, and for me it's important to keep that quite private. And also me and my husband took a stance of, we didn't want to show our family because it actually should be our children's decision if they want to be on social media. That's not a decision that I should be making for anybody, including my children. Especially as a black woman, we talk so much about black women's boundaries. And when I had a daughter, I was like, that's not a boundary that I want to cross for my child. I want to respect her in that way, and that extends to my son. So I think it's image in terms of physical image, how you present yourself, but then having this image of having a perfect family and having a career where you make $1 million in year 1 and $2 million in year 2, and then 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So it's kind of being seen to do it all perfectly. That's probably the hardest part of being working in the media. And it's something that I've had to divorce myself from in terms of, like, one, my makeup don't slay like the Gen Z on TikToks. Like, it's just not happening.
How do they have the time?
But they have the time. I don't have the time.
Like, some of these mums, there's some of these Gen Z mums that,
well,
I don't know. Their mums are looking after the kids.
God is giving them extra time in the day, and kudos to them for even doing it. But I just don't have the time.
We all have a different 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I have learned, and we choose to spend our time differently. I don't have 2 hours to do makeup.
Yeah,
I have 10 minutes.
Like, I'm craving to go for a run for my mental health. I'm craving to finish that book, and I can't even do that because work is really long, and then I'm trying to put work down to be present with my kids. And I actually enjoy cooking, but I do cook, and that can be quite, people say, we outsource our cleaning. I don't outsource my cooking. That's something that I like to do.
Same.
So, like, it's just that image, and, like, people want you to be, I couldn't show my living room. Like, what? What? Yesterday, we put the kids in bed, and then we watched, we watched Borders, which is a brilliant show. If anyone's watching Borders on BBC, it's so funny. Okay. We watched Borders with a bowl of popcorn, and we was literally doing work as we was watching Borders, and we was working till like 1, but talking as a couple, and then my husband, my co-founder, and then watching the show, and like, we swept up, and they were just washing up in the sink, and I just said, I cannot. And my husband said, neither can I. Toys were on the floor, and I went to bed. I was like, I just can't. Can't. Like, I'm too tired.
Let it go.
I'm too tired tonight. So working in the media is just the image, where it's physical, how relatable you are. I think I've been very, very blessed in terms of my newsletters allow me to be relatable in a different way. It's made me be relatable in terms of how I think, my views. Even I do share my motherhood journey, but I think I'm very deliberate in terms of my motherhood journey, not my kids in my motherhood journey. It's my perspective. But I'm never gonna be the mum who's gonna be like, I went to the gym, and then I came back and I managed to look after my babies, and I read everyone a bedtime story. I'm never going to present that, but I also actually don't think it's healthy to present that, actually, because sometimes I think it can be quite intimidating. So I'm very conscious of how I present myself in motherhood, and sometimes you do have a win where you're like, damn, I closed this deal. I did the nursery run. Like, I had a day on a couple of weeks ago where I dropped the kids to nursery. I did a shoot. Jenny was producing, but I was like project managing the shoot and stuff. I did a call with a client in the shoot, and then I managed to race back from Tooting to East London in an hour and a half and pick up the kids. And I was like, that was a winning day.
Ding, ding,
I should put that on TikTok.
I know. You're like, I should have recorded this day.
I said, you know what? I should have recorded that day. I was on fire that day. Did everything. And I remember, like, the nursery was going to close at 6. I said, I'm not getting a phone. And jumped to light. I said, nope, not today, Satan. I'm getting 6 o'clock. 5 to 6, I got in. The kids were like still like good. And then I went home. I made a banging meal. The kids were in. Dad did bedtime. Had a and you have those days. But I'm not gonna, the way I don't show those days is the same day where I'm not going to show. I get an email and I'm like, oh God, that's really terrible for the business. And then the kids had a tantrum and I'm just sat on the floor and being like, no God, like I need to start again tomorrow. I just personally don't have the energy to show both those days as my image, and I don't feel inclined to either. Like, I feel no way about sharing stuff.
It's good boundaries.
Exactly. It's just setting boundaries, isn't it?
Very good boundaries.
And I love what you said about only posting your motherhood journey and not necessarily your children, because I think that is such an important thing. I do post my children on social media, but I'm very we were talking about this before, I don't ever embarrass them. I wouldn't ever post them crying. I wouldn't ever post a tantrum.
Oh, that's sorry. I do not judge
so...
mums, except I do when you're smashing eggs on your child's head
Oh
and they're
God,
crying,
yeah,
and then you choose to go and post that. No, to me,
How
I'm
are
like,
you even
sorry.
like recording?
Yeah.
Even like recording tantrums and stuff. When the tantrum is
So you
happening,
go
I'm
and
not
get your
thinking to get my
tripod, you get
phone
your
out
phone,
to record
and then you
it.
record.
I get that. I saw that with I've seen a couple of famous and actually mummy bloggers, and I unfollowed certain mums in pregnancy that did that. So I was thinking, imagine you have a terrible day and your husband records, be like, "How you feeling?"
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
Well,
what
I've
it
seen
is.
men do that, and people are like, "This is abusive," and it is. So why
Same
do
thing
we
for the
justify
children's
doing that
kids.
to children?
So I was just like, it's not what I would want to do. No, it's not something I would want to happen to me. So it's just those boundaries and not feeding into being part of, I guess, a media that wants us to show everything and show perfection and then show like massive downfalls to have like this amazing arc. I think there's a difference between being transparent and then doing so much so that you look so relatable that, you know, you're selling part of yourself. And we've seen people having to walk it back when like something goes wrong in your household, and then having to explain. And I always say, people don't owe you you don't owe me an explanation because I followed you, or because maybe I liked your pictures on Instagram, or I watched your YouTube videos. I don't actually need to know. And I was gripped by your personal life, but I also have in mind, like, you don't actually owe me anything. Like, what you owed me was you entertained me for a part of my season, and then like we all moved on, and I just don't want to get into that sort of like
And I think that's the thing about the kind of social media world we're in. Those people are very entitled to people's lives, and they want to know everything that's going on in their lives, and it's actually none of your business. But it's like, if you put one thing out there, like, you have the right to put something out there, but you don't need to then go and explore the rest of everything else. So
For sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, we are talking for England.
it's a great conversation.
And then we have a couple of quick fire questions from our listeners. So thank you for everyone who submitted questions. Over to you.
Okay, so your next question from us is, what do we need to be teaching our children about media?
Not oversharing, having safety, and being transparent with the people that are your parents and guardians. I think that's really important.
It's very clear.
Like, I hope that if my kids want to have social media, it can be done in a healthy way. So if someone, whether it's a child or an adult, does something, they immediately see it as us the first port of call to report it to. And like say like, this has happened, and then we can deal with it adequately. I think we need to make sure our children feel comfortable in knowing that, like, I always say to my kids, like, there's nothing no one can tell you in this world where I'm not on your side. Like, tell me, I always say, if someone tells you that I'm not on your side, they're a liar. And my 3-year-old and 2-year-old will look at me like, huh? And I'm like, one day you understand. You understand. But it's just making them like comfortable. Like, it's this thing where I do so so when my kids hurt themselves, I do naughty, don't hurt my son or my daughter. So I want them to know that I'm their protector. Like, I'm protecting you, and I think that extends to social media. So yeah, I definitely say like those like transparency, boundaries, having a guardian that you trust. And even if it's not us, I think my kids have great relationship with their aunties and uncles. So having that village around them, because, you know, we're the my brother's older than me, but we're the eldest of the majority of the siblings. So there's like, so my husband's the eldest, and there's 3. He's got 3 siblings, and then his sister-in-law. And then I've got 2 younger sisters. So, you know, my kids are closer in age to all of them. So even if it's they want to tell them first, that should be okay with me, because as long as they're telling somebody in our family. So I think those are just...
I think that's really
I told my sister already, she is I'm like, you're not even the informant, you're the fun auntie, you're the rich auntie for now. But
now,
I've got 3 daughters. Like, if they're not going to talk to me about boys, they're talking to you. Take them out. Don't need to tell me anything. Make sure they're safe. Look after them.
Yeah, and it's that, and it's also like, you know, your worst fear is like, you know, you all do that thing when you're going to a new school, bullying, like, and stuff like that, and just making sure that my kids feel comfortable enough if something happens at school, or you know, you see these, you know, whether you see fictionalized, you know, accounts through shows, or you hear stories in the media, making sure my children know that, okay, if that's happened, I need to tell my parents, because they're my protectors, or my family because they're my protectors. That's really important.
I think you'll be surprised as well how many children go to school and tell, being a teacher, I get so many complaints and children coming to tell me things that and I say, have you told your parents? And they haven't told their parents. So there are a lot of children that their safe adult, the person that they trust, is their teacher. So that, I think that definitely needs to be a shift in that, because I think parents, we do need to know, like, I can't be responsible for 30 children in my class and tell every adult, this is what your child said, this, do you know what I mean? So I think there 100%. Definitely needs to be a shift in that. I think that's so important.
Beautiful. Right, next question. Emma.
So we go into the social media questions, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, okay. Glad we're on the same page. So we had a very similar theme of topics and questions that came out. And a lot of them were asking, how do you juggle being a CEO and being a mum? That's what the Mum Dem want to know.
I don't know if I do. I feel like I'm winging it. I think it's having... I'm going to say this. Okay, I'm going to say it. Having the right team is important.
Yeah.
As a CEO, when I had stress with like wrong team members, it affected how I was as a mum. I wouldn't be able to be present. I was overthinking. Like, I'll start as a CEO. When you are a CEO, there are two camps that employees fall into: their investments or their drains, and it's very clear. And I have had drains. People that you put money into and it's just not working, they're not producing, or they're not a cultural fit. And it's actually only for the CEO to decide that, unfortunately. That's the point. And if you're working, your manager, it's an unfortunate thing. You might feel it's personal, you might feel it's not. But only your manager can decide if you're an investment or a drain. That's what happens when you go to work. That's what you sign up for. It's unfortunate. And I've had to learn that very quickly. I learned that as when I was an employee. And that's how I kept my jobs, of learning. Someone told me that people either see you as an investment or as a drain. And I was very quick when I was an employee actually to make sure that people saw me as an investment. Yeah. And the moment someone saw me as a drain, I was gone. And that's just it. So you have to make yourself invaluable. When you're in a startup, it's even more important that people see you as invaluable. Yeah. So you have to build a team that is incredible around you. And I would say that I work with my husband, so there's even an added layer. He's super supportive. My husband is very... he's a great CEO in terms of that we have skills and mindsets that complement each other. They're quite different, but they complement. But he's also very happy of, like, he knows the role he plays in BB and the role I have to play. So I do miss a lot of their times. I'm the one that's going out for events. I am the one that has to go out and close meetings. And I don't feel, he doesn't make me feel guilty for that. And he should never. But there are women who don't have that, and I want to acknowledge that I do have that. So having a supportive partner is important. Having a supportive partner in business is extremely important. Then I have to credit, obviously, Jadella Benson, who I've worked with for probably like 6 years at this point. She's a mum as well. And then I've had like amazing people along the way. I had an incredible PA who no longer is with us, and she was called Wendy Hunter, and she made my life a whole lot easier. My God, she was a super PA. I've had other employees, whether it be across social or creating content, who have just been like, you give them the ball and they can run. And that's really important if you're going to be a CEO and mum, knowing that what you're building, your vision, is very safe in your employees' hands, whether they're junior or senior, actually. Yeah. And when you have a vision and you feel like it's not safe in the hands of some people you're employing, it just distracts you from motherhood. Yeah. It's so distracting, especially because you see the numbers. You're the one that has to go to bed thinking, where's that cash coming from? Where am I putting that cash? So I would definitely say having the right team is number one in managing your CEO and I guess motherhood journey. Then on the other hand is the team that is supporting you in your motherhood journey. So my daughter went to a nursery, didn't like it, pulled her out, goes to an incredible nursery now. Her key workers are amazing. My daughter had some health challenges earlier this year. Her key worker sent her packages home, care packages. I remember on a Friday, he was like, how is she? I was like, she's feeling all right. It was like 2 o'clock, I was like, bring her in. She went in for like the last couple of hours and they just did karaoke. and like stuff like that. And like my son's key worker, she's white, but she's learning Yoruba for my son because she doesn't think it's fair that like many kids are bilingual and they don't know his language, although he just laughs at her when she speaks. but things like that are really important.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
even her saying that she's noticed kids touch his hair and what does she want me to do about that, and teaching him boundaries. So she's teaching him boundaries with his hair, so I haven't got to do all that work. And you know, my in-laws, you know, if we need, my mother-in-law's very good at like, are you tired? Do you need a weekend? My father-in-law's very hands-on as well, actually. He's super hands-on. And just having them and my mum, who's like, she's the eldest parent, so she can't have the kids together, but what she will do is like, she'll offer to do laundry and be like, right, drop laundry around, I'll help you do it. Or she came over on Monday, she's like, do you want me to help you clean up? And just having your teams, I think it's the only way to have as much of it as you can in terms of having it all. It's having your right teams. Because like you can't do it alone. You can't be the only superstar. You can't be the superstar parent. You can't be the superstar CEO. You can't be the one with all the ideas. You can't be the one who's getting all the glory. It's exhausting. It's too much pressure. You want to be able to actually fade into the background of both your business at times, and you actually want to be able to be a parent when you don't need to take the lead all the time. So your partner has to be solid, and I'm very blessed that I couldn't have asked for a better partner when it comes to my kids and my husband and in business. So I just think your teams are just so important when you're trying to be a mum, and especially as a CEO, because just the level of pressure as a CEO, you have responsibility. I would say first and foremost to your team. You've got to get everybody paid. Your customer base, you have to keep the product exciting. You have to keep it at a certain level. You have investors and shareholders who I'm answerable to. And you know, when things have been great, people have been happy. I've had a very hard conversation when it's not been a good year. So you have all these stakeholders, and you've got to explain yourself a lot as a CEO. So that team is important. And then, you know, for your kids, you have to explain a lot to your kids, and you need to make sure the team that are looking after your kids are good. Like, my kids don't miss me when they're at nursery, and that's how it should be. I'm paying way too much money for them to miss me, to be honest. Way too much money. And then when they're at their grandparents, my son might cry when we leave, but after day one, he don't care. And that's how it should be. Like, I shouldn't be feeling guilty for having a day off. And I think that's just my stance on both on that, to be honest. So that's my advice I have for the mums and working mums in general.
Because that
everyone's a CEO.
Goes
it works
for
for all of us.
Absolutely. And
you need your people.
And even the questions that I had, you've answered them as well, in that, like, trying to overcome being a superhero, doing everything. You've answered all of that just beautifully.
Fantastic.
That's beautiful.
Then let's have one last question. People want to know, why did you start Black Ballad?
Why did I start Black Ballad? Because media's too white. Simple as. It's too white on too many fronts. I struggled to get a job. I was freelancing. I just couldn't get a stable job. Like, I couldn't. And then I did this thing where I'd stalk, like, who got the job, and I started to realise everyone was white, thin and able-bodied, and I was like, yeah, Toby, this ain't going to work out for you.
And just for listeners, Toby is an excellent writer. If you've not read her writing, you need to, but you're actually a very good writer.
Very, very good.
I'm very fussy. I do not read everyone's newsletters. The one that I religiously read, I've missed maybe a handful. Is yours. You're a very good writer. So it's really important to state that, because when you're saying you weren't getting the jobs, it's easy to think, oh, maybe you just weren't very good. No, you were good, and you weren't getting the jobs.
And I think that's it. You know, I think as someone that's in the workforce, you do have to have a level of ego. You do have to believe that you're worthy, and you should be getting your job, because what's the point of applying for a job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I started to realise that, you know, the editorial assistant at Cosmo, she was going to get the features writer's job at Elle, and then the deputy features director at Marie Claire, I don't even know if it's still around. Yeah, it is. It's online now. That deputy features director was going to be the features director at Harper's Bazaar. There's a circle, and I couldn't break into that women's lifestyle circle. And then just representation. I remember, I feel like I remember where I was in WH Smith's, and I was probably just starting secondary school. And I'm pretty sure it was Marie Claire, and they'd done an issue where they had like 2 pages dedicated to black women's beauty, and it changed my perspective. I was like, Jesus Christ, like what? I've never seen it in magazines. I was like kids where my parents would be shopping on a Friday night in like Sainsbury's, and they'd leave me in the magazine aisle. This ain't safe. I'd never do this.
You wouldn't do that now, but
absolutely,
it's a different time.
I'd be reading all the magazines, so because they wouldn't pay for it, and by the time they were done, they're like, "You finished." And then I'd walk to the till. I'd literally just read the magazines. I'd literally do it every Friday night when we went shopping. Wow. And I remember we went to Smith for something, and I remember I saw these black women. I was like, oh my God, it's like, you can write about black women in magazines. And I used to have a subscription to Cosmo Girl. I had it for like 4 years. That was my birthday gift. That's what I wanted. And I used to love it, but damn, like, dark skin was J-Lo. And I remember one time, and I was like, what?
Dark skin was J-Lo.
Not even Beyonce, that's saying something.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember they went to like Fair something. I remember J-Lo was like Olive, and that's the darkest it went on. I was like, oh God. I like, black women were just not represented. So it was kind of like, as a media professional and as like a consumer, I was just not being satisfied. And then add into the mix that I was at King's doing American studies, and African American culture, it's very defined. It's not separate from American culture, it's in American culture, but it's very defined. Like, they have their publications, their education, their universities. And I was just like, this was 2011, and I was like, what is Black British culture? But we didn't have social media then, and I felt that Black British culture kind of, rightly so, Notting Hill Carnival was kind of like a pinnacle. Black History Month was kind of there. Then you had kind of like Pride and The Voice, and I felt that's what we had. And I'm not knocking any of that. Yeah. I'm just saying that I felt like there was more to explore and more to open up. I felt the best way to do this was through a publication. And I actually, something I said, and I don't think people have actually picked up on it, I was really interested in what it looked like to be a black European. This was before Brexit. What did the identity of black women in Europe look like? Because I always say, I don't actually have I don't have this massive thing that I need to compete with Essence, because I think Essence works because it's African American and I can admire it. But what works for Black Britons and Black European women? I think, there is a thread that threads us all together as Black Europeans and Black Britons, and being a black woman in Manchester is different to being a black woman in London, and being a black woman in Cornwall is probably very different to being a black woman in the south of France. And I wanted to explore all of that, and I wanted to know what it was like to do that, and that's how I started Black Ballad, and that's why I started Black Ballad. And I'll be honest, I didn't have an intention to do it for 10 years. I just thought, I'd do it, and then someone would give me a job, and then I thought I was going to go into publication and I'd be able to specialise in black women's things. That's what I thought. Wow. But here we are, 10 years later. This year actually we will mark a milestone of paying black women and creatives £1 million.
Wow, that's excellent.
It's amazing.
That's really incredible.
Black Ballad.
That's something we've done in 10 years. Well, 7, because we weren't paying anyone for the first 3. But I just never, that was kind of how it started, and it's just grown into something beyond my imagination, to be honest.
Wow.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Final
having me.
question. Where can our listeners connect with you?
Okay, so connect with me, my Instagram. I don't really do Twitter, so it's what hell must be. So Instagram is like I am Tobi Oredein, and then LinkedIn is Tobi Oredein, and then Black Ballad is Black Ballad UK on all socials. Black is in the colour, ballad is in the song, UK all together, because I know some of you love a hard R.
We'll link it.
We'll put it all in the bio.
So that's on all platforms like Instagram, Black Ballad's on Twitter. I think we're still on Facebook.
Facebook? What is Facebook?
Definitely, on TikTok and I think we're on Twitter, because I don't really do Twitter. I'm pretty sure we're still on Twitter. But it's what happens when you don't do every facet of your business anyways, so it's good. So that's where people can find us, and hopefully, check us out.
And subscribe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Join the family. Thank you so much.
you.
And for listeners, if you are not driving and it's safe to do so, and you're listening to us on Spotify, please subscribe and like and stick with us. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well, and you can find us across everything at Mum Dem Pod.
Thanks for listening.
Thank
you for
Bye,
being
everyone.
here.
Oh, I almost forgot. My son said he was very disappointed when he listened to the pilot because he asked me to include a joke. I did not include the joke.
Oh, you did a mum
So
joke.
this
Oh, you
section
bought a joke.
is I did.
It's not even a mum joke.
This
It's not a mum
is
joke.
KB's joke. This
Oh
is the
my
segment
God.
he's asked me to add. He is 5, so we're rolling with it. So Toby, please humour me on this. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Europe.
Europe who?
No, Europe.
Oh my.
That was definitely a 5-year-old's joke.
That is KB's joke.
You guys gonna make
The
this
Mum
a
Dem
regular,
can listen to
regular
it.
segment? Mum Dem
Mum
joke.
Dem- I
We are,
don't. Mum
so-
Dem kid jokes.
As I was leaving the house, he saw the T-shirt and he was like, "Oh, I said, are you going to include my joke?" So
Okay, I'll bring
We've
the
done
next
it.
joke.
Just for you.
Bring the jokes back.
Wait.
Okay.
thank
so-
you everyone for listening,
Thank
and
you.
we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
This has been the Mum Dem podcast
With Emma.
Rachel,
and Kamilah.
please like and subscribe and follow along for more wholesome content.
Thanks for listening.